It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. 8 years we've been on this show, giving you our expert news and reviews of the real estate market to help you guys understand what's happening in the world of housing and how that impacts you here in the Low Country. And so today we're talking about the bubble. We're going to address this forbearance bubble, this tidal wave of foreclosures that everybody keeps referring to. Is the market about to bust wide open? We're going to answer that question. I have a lot of folks asking me if I'm concerned about the real estate market and the bubble, so to speak, that they feel we're in. And is there now enough information for us to confidently say that the bubble is about to burst? I'm going to answer that question. We're going to talk about the local real estate market and what we're experiencing, since all real estate really should be local. Yes, we need to rely on national and regional information to help us better understand how that impacts us here in the Low Country. But we're going to talk about the forbearance bubble. We've talked a lot previously about this quote-unquote wave of foreclosures that's going to be coming our way, as reported by all sorts of experts, ranging from news outlets and blogs to anybody with a YouTube channel. So it's time to revisit that now that we've got some new data that's come out and give you guys an understanding of the potential future of the real estate market. So let me first just say that before I get into this, because this is going to be kind of a long spiel, I'm going to give you guys a really good understanding of what's happening, what has been trending really since Trump declared a national emergency back on March 13th of 2020, and what's happened since then. So I'm going to give you guys that information. We're going to go through it month by month, tell you what's happening in the form of trends and how that impacts us. But if you're interested in learning more about how that relates to you, whether you should be considering selling your home right now, or if you're trying to buy a home, what do you need to be aware of? How do you prepare to purchase a home in a market that so heavily favors a seller? If you're a seller right now, what can you be doing to kind of expedite this process? Is there a way for you to sell your home without having to go through the traditional process of listing your property for sale and being open to a bunch of showings? The answer is yes. We'll talk about that. But if you want to reach out to me, you want to have a private conversation, you don't want it to be on air, my personal cell phone number, which you can call or text, is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or you can send me an email, Brian, that's Brian with an I, at brianbeattyteam.com, Brian at brianbeattyteam.com. Or you can check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Huge shout out to Sam O'Neill and my team for revamping the radio show portion of our website. We now have, I want to say, 150-ish videos on there, all on one page in chronological order, so that you can kind of see what's happening in the market and how it's evolving. There's a bunch of great tips on there. Those videos range between 8 and 15 minutes, so they're, I think, easily digestible, but as well as information on my team and what we sell and all that great stuff. Listingsincharleston.com. So let's get right into it. One of the key indicators that supports this opinion of these so-called experts in regards to this foreclosure bubble and this wave of foreclosure, those are the key words. Those are the buzzwords that people are using to really capture your attention. And if you watch videos on YouTube, you'll see people with like a static image of them like pulling their hair out as they have in bold red letters, tidal wave of foreclosures, real estate market crash 2021. And it's because there's a record number of mortgage forbearances that we've experienced over the course of the past, year, close to 12 months. And for those of you that don't know, forbearance is just simply an arrangement with mortgage holders to delay homeowners' payments for several months, up to a year, with the balance being due at the end of the forbearance, whether it's a few months, 6 months, a year, so on and so forth. And so we saw basically 4.3 million homeowners in forbearance in May of last year, whereas now that number is harboring around 2.7-ish million. So the question is this: when forbearance ends, when forbearance ends, which is inevitable, I mean, it's going to happen, it can't last forever, what's going to happen? Will this cause this quote-unquote tidal wave of foreclosures that will drive prices down? Will this be the pin that kind of bursts the housing bubble, driving prices down and putting a hard stop on demand? That's kind of the feel that I'm getting from some folks that I'm talking to that follow the market but have concerns, and maybe they have a generalized understanding of the market, or maybe they're just reading things online and blogs or watching videos, and they're just concerned. And so that's really what this show is going to do. We're going to address those concerns through data, through trends, through a deep understanding of how all of this plays together. So let's first just kind of take a step back and look at what happened month by month since COVID was declared a national emergency back in March of last year. And by sharing this data, you'll start to see the trends, which I'm going to explain along the way to you. But again, if you want to know how this impacts you, your decision-making process, whether you should be considering buying, selling, or investing in real estate right now, these national trends and this data, to an extent, impacts you, but all decisions in real estate are local and personal. So if that's something you'd like to just have a discussion about, feel free to call me, text me. My cell phone number is 843-400-8009, 400-8009. Send me an email, brian@brianbeattyteam.com, or go to listingsincharleston.com, which is our website. So let's go through this in kind of chronological order. So in March, on the 13th, Trump declares a national emergency. People kind of companies begin the process of, thinning the herd, so to speak, by instituting layoffs and furloughs. We all know somebody that's gone through that at some point here in the course of the past, 9 months or so, 10 months, 11 months. On the 23rd of March, the Fed Chairman Powell announced that the central bank would be making unlimited mortgage-backed securities purchases. As a result, interest rates right around that point in time were about 3.45%. That was the average for a 30-year fixed mortgage. So then we go to April. The overall share of mortgage loans in forbearance rose by about 7.5% in the last week of April, with bank-based servicers really holding kind of the biggest slice of the pie. 30 million Americans filed for unemployment insurance since mid-March. So in close to 6 weeks, we've had 30 million Americans file for unemployment insurance. Interest rates go down from 3.45% to 3.23%. At that point in time, it was an all-time low. Then we go to May. By the end of May, total loans in forbearance reached 8.53%, about 4.3 million homeowners in some form of forbearance. But as mortgage rates continue to drop, so did inventory, which we didn't really expect. We kind of expected inventory to go up. What happened was the exact opposite of that. Inventory started plummeting. And so that's when realtors start reporting a huge uptick in sales activity. There's all this demand since, interest rates are low, which takes us into June and this beefed up kind of unemployment benefits did keep forbearance rates lower that a lot of people had forecasted. But instead of 20-30% of people in forbearance, the actual forbearance rate was 8.6% of all mortgages. So we're around 4.2 million at this point in time. In May, or I guess in June, sales jumped 21% compared to May. So we're starting to see transactions occur. We're starting to see inventory get absorbed. By July, COVID cases are starting to rise at alarming rates. And then to add to the stress of consumers, July 30th was the end date for that $600 a week federal enhancement to state unemployment benefits, which obviously was aimed at replacing salaries of people who had lost jobs, amid the pandemic. But by July 26th, the total number of loans in forbearance was down to 7.67%, about 3.8 million people. Then we go to August. In August, TransUnion reveals a report that says that while 53% of respondents reported making normal payments to their mortgage loans. About 14% of them said they weren't sure if they could pay next month's bill. So we're starting to see this financial hardship start to set in. By the end of the month, the total number of loans in forbearance fell to 7.16%. So now we're down to 3.6 million. Mortgage rates are now at 2.93% at the end of the month, breaking yet another record. Home sale activity is way above expectations amid continually shrinking inventory. So then in September, the number of mortgages in active forbearance rose actually by 21,000 in the last week of September. And according to a report by Black Knight, which is a very popular and kind of the premier provider of data for and analytics for mortgages and home equity lending and servicing, stated that nearly 7% of all mortgages are now in some form of active forbearance. So now we're down to 3.6 million people, which, by the way, represented over $750 billion in unpaid principal. But now we see interest rates go to 2.88%, which continues to kind of fuel the fire on the demand side of things as inventory continues to reduce, which does what? It starts pushing up prices even more. Then in October, HUD, or the Department of Housing and Urban Development, announced that the FHA was going to extend the date for consumers to ask for mortgage forbearance to the end of the year, December 31st. On the 25th of October, 2.9 million homeowners were in forbearance, which was 5.83%. Mortgage rates ticked up a little bit, 3.01% was the average at the end of the month in October. So then we go to November. By the 22nd of November, we have 2.8 million homeowners in forbearance, which is down from, again, the peak of 5.54% of all mortgages. Interest rates are now at 2.72%, and new and existing home sales, although they started to cool off in October, were still 20% higher than they were in November of 2019. We still see shrinking inventory. Then in December, we head into the last week of the year. Black Knight again estimates that 2.8 million homeowners are now in some form of forbearance, which is 5.3%, and accounts for $565 billion in unpaid principal. Mortgage rates dropped to 2.66%. Also in December, the FHFA extended its foreclosure moratorium for borrowers with mortgage backed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, just for a month, though, until the end of January of 2021. But 10 days ahead of its latest expiration date, HUD extended the deadline for forbearance until February 28th of this year. Then we get a second stimulus bill, give $600 to folks making less than $75,000 a year. And so that's the timeline of events. So I'm going to tie all that in to where we are right now and discuss the impact of that. You guys are already you're seeing the trend. You're seeing the reduction in interest rates. You're seeing the reduction in forbearance, the reduction in unpaid principal. And so we're going to tie that all together when we come back. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me, you want to have a discussion about your plans to buy, sell, or invest in real estate this year, my number is 843-400-8009. That's 400-8009. Or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
1250 WTMA.
Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. We're talking about the real estate bubble, the forbearance bubble, this tidal wave of foreclosures, this impending market crash that everybody keeps talking about. And I'm tying this all together with really what happened starting back in March of last year, providing you guys with a timeline of events, which I just did this last segment if you're just joining us. But I want to tie this all in together now. But remember, if you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, it's always a local decision. Yes, we need to have an understanding of what's happening nationally and regionally as that impacts us here locally in the Charleston market. but there are still opportunities to buy good deals. Sellers, the deck is stacked in your favor. Buy low, sell high is certainly applicable to the current market. And investors, yes, you can still find some deals. We're still helping plenty of people find investment properties. The game has changed a little bit. One of the things that is, I think, always a little concerning to me is when people start owning multiple investment properties that frankly don't have the financial ability to carry multiple investment properties. Back before the market crashed in 2008, when the gas station attendant owned 6 rental properties, it's time to be a little concerned for the well-being of the market. We're not there yet. And we're going to tie that into the current market as it relates to the market leading up to the crash of 2008. We will discuss that here in just a moment. But if you want to reach out to me and just have a conversation about what's going on in the market, what that means for you, whether you're buying, selling, both, or investing in real estate, give me a buzz. I'd love to talk you through it. 843-400-8009 is my personal number. You can call or text that number. You can send me an email, which is Brian with an I at BrianBeattyTeam.com, Brian at BrianBeattyTeam.com, or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. In fact, if you go to that radio show section, which we just kind of revamped, and it looks awesome, by the way, we've got some great shows on there that we've done recently, like what we did earlier in the year about the impact of Biden and what he has planned for the housing market and what's going to happen there. So a lot of great stuff on that website, listingsincharleston.com, aside from all the usual stuff like searching the MLS or finding out how much your home is worth or, researching us to see if we're a team you'd like to do business with. So let's tie in everything that we were talking about last segment, the timeline of events from March until the end of December, and just talk about what's going on. So we've discussed the timeline of events. So while in any market, you're going to have bears and you're going to have bulls, right? So while the housing market bubble bears, so to speak, predicted a market crash due to the COVID crisis, really what happened is the exact opposite. Home price growth is accelerating faster than what feels comfortable or, quote unquote, appropriate for nominal home price growth. The housing market's current strength isn't really because of COVID. It's despite it. If you really think about it, demographics plus low mortgage rates service that kind of 1-2 punch that has pushed our market to new heights, not just locally, but regionally, nationally. And in 2018 and 2019, there was a point in time when mortgage rates rose up to 5%. And all it did was cool down price gains in the existing housing market. The impact on the market at that point in time was very noticeable and frankly, probably a healthy and needed event. But the question remains, will all this strength in the housing market dampen or erase the risk of having all these homes in forbearance once forbearance ends? So I want to give you guys some things to think about. Number one, which we've kind of already discussed with the latest data from Black Knight, which again is a premier provider of data and analytics for mortgage and home equity lending and servicing. It very clearly shows us that the number of homes in forbearance has been decreasing. We're well off of the peak in the summer of last year, which was a little under 4.5 million homeowners in some form of forbearance. And I expect that number to continue to go down, but there is going to be a lag in the data as jobs come back online. And we've talked about this. We've talked about how real estate in and of itself is a lagging indicator of the economy. Just like forbearance numbers and foreclosure rates are going to be a lagging indicator of jobs. So there's good news there in that forbearance numbers are going down. The second is just the overall credit profiles of buyers and people refinancing for mortgages. These buyers, especially those who purchased from 2010 to 2017 have fixed low debt costs due to low interest rates. We've got rising wages and a bunch of equity that's been built. We built over $1 trillion in equity in last year alone. And so as these home prices continue to grow beyond expectations, beyond what many in the market feel is just uncomfortable or slightly unnatural, these homeowners now have additional equity, another year of gains, that they can draw from that kind of helps them in their decision-making process. And so when we compare this to the overall credit profiles of people that were looking to buy, right before 2008, I mean, the comparison, frankly, is night and day. I mean, we were in a huge, debt leverage speculative market. I mean, I can tell you some stories, some crazy stories about some folks that I helped through short sales. I mean, in 2009, we were doing a lot of foreclosures, a lot of short sales. By 2011, it represented 30% of the market. I mean, right now, I think it's less than 3% of the market. Will that uptick a little bit? Sure. Be careful for outlets that, report a percentage increase in the number of distressed properties, because the percentage increase is going to look staggering. A 200% increase in distressed properties at face value seems like a lot, but when you realize that it still only represents 5-6% of the overall inventory, it suddenly becomes not as big of a deal. But the third thing that I want you guys to focus on, I guess, and just think of as kind of the light at the end of the tunnel here, is the fact that, jobs are coming back. We've gained over 12.5 million jobs since the very bottom, and that was not in the forecast from a lot of these experts, quite frankly. So if you look back to, the February 2020 payroll data, which accounts for, most workers, most employees, we had about 152 million employed workers. We got as low as 130 million, but now we're back to 142.5 basically million. So we're still short close to 10 million jobs, which, by the way, is more jobs than we lost during the great financial crisis post 2008. So you're seeing negative jobs right now being reported, frankly, because yes, it's true, but it's also, that's the narrative that has the most impact. It's what news outlets deem newsworthy and impactful. But the reality is, a lot of these jobs won't come back while COVID is still in full effect, because it limits some job sectors from operating at full capacity. I mean, think about, hospitality as an example, a prime example. Food and bev, another great example. So, vaccinations will help, and they're on their way. But we still have what I think is, frankly, a long road ahead of us. And I think you guys would probably agree with that. I mean, is everything happening in the market and everything that I've just described kind of a preamble to another market crash? That's the question. That's, and folks aren't tying all those pieces together. They're just hearing or watching or seeing, reports from folks that have learned how to gain a following on YouTube that know how to appeal to your emotions. We either run toward pleasure or away from pain, and the vast majority of marketing out there is geared toward running away from pain. And so, is this, again, a preamble to another market crash? I don't believe so. Demographics are better. Household balance sheets are healthier. Lending standards are still strict but accessible. And consumer confidence shows that people still believe now is a good time to buy and sell real estate. Now, having said that, if the jobs data continues to worsen and, we as a country, I guess, decide that it's just too expensive to help our American citizens in this crisis, then yes, we will likely see an uptick in distressed sales, which I think we're going to see anyways. The question is by how much and at what impact. So we're going to see an uptick in distressed sales and in forced selling. That we know. Again, the question is the volume. How much will it be? Even then, I still don't anticipate a crash. And I think that's the key word. And that's really what I want to focus on is crash. Crash is a word that creates fear. Are we going to crash? I don't believe so. Will things eventually soften? Yes. The pendulum always swings from left to right, buyer's market, seller's market over time. It doesn't stay in one direction forever. So at some point in time, the market will normalize. But right now, inventory is so incredibly low and demand is so incredibly high that prices are going up at ridiculous rates in some instances. People are paying ridiculous prices for property in some instances. And of course, for the person that has a level head and for the person that's, analyzing the data and also determining, the difference between what something is worth and then what they're willing to pay for it in a market when there's hardly anything available, that range, that gap between fair market value and what a buyer is willing to pay gets wider. That stretches. We've seen some folks where, almost every deal these days seems like it's in a multiple offer situation. And I know for buyers, that's extremely challenging. But we're seeing some buyers that are just paying silly prices for real estate. Obviously, it's their choice. Of course, you question whether that buyer is getting the guidance that they need, the consultation that they need, walking through the process, understanding everything, or if it's just another agent that just wants to get a deal done. I think that's the fear of a lot of consumers right now, is that they just don't know or can't trust or can't rely on the real estate agent to help them at least have peace of mind around the financial portion of the transaction. Because real estate in and of itself, from a residential standpoint, is emotional. It's personal in nature. It's not purely a business decision. When you're an investor, it should be. But people get wrapped up in the emotions of the transaction, and that sometimes leads to, obviously, a seller really winning because they find a buyer that's willing to pay top dollar more than what somebody else would be willing to pay for it just for the sake of winning the deal. And so when we're working with our clients, we're setting reasonable expectations about what's going to happen. When you buy a home, here's what that market looks like. Here's what that arena looks like. Let's prepare you for that fight. Let's make sure that we have all our ducks in a row. I talked last show about what you can do as a buyer to prepare when entering a market that heavily favors a seller. Just like as a seller, just because the market's good doesn't necessarily mean you should be taking a lackadaisical approach to selling because you understand or believe that, hey, someone's going to buy it regardless. I don't need to do anything to my property. I don't really need a real estate agent that's going to go above and beyond for me. The market's going to sell my home for me in a matter of days. I see it all the time. And that, I think, is a pitfall that people experience in a market like this. We'll talk about that a little bit when we come back. Stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me, you want to have a discussion about your plans to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. Of course, our team has been in the top 1% of agents here every year since 2009. We'd love to earn your business. Feel free to give me a call personally. My number is 843-400-8009. That's 400-8009. Or check us out online at listingsincharleston.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hear the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 9 and each Sunday morning at 10 on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. 1250 WTMA, the Big Talker. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, folks, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. So we've been spending the first half of the show talking about this question that I keep getting asked, which is, hey, is the market about to crash? It really is. The bubble about to burst. I keep hearing all these stories about all these folks in forbearance that are going to turn into foreclosures and will ultimately drive prices down, which means I probably shouldn't buy a house right now. And at the end of the day, go back and listen to the show. You can go to listingsincharleston.com if you're just joining us, and I'll give you the full timeline of events from what's happened from March of last year until now, and what I believe the outlook for our market is, which is that, these folks that end up not making it, right? They can't get back on their feet financially. Prices are going up at such rapid rates, such, in some instances, uncomfortable rates, that these folks are going to be traditional home sellers. They're not necessarily going to be distressed sales. We'll see. Will there be some? Absolutely. I don't think there's any question in anyone's mind that there will be some foreclosures and some short sales that come as a result of what's happened with COVID. But is it going to cripple our market? Is it going to crash our market? No, I don't believe so. At least not with the data that we're seeing right now. Anything can change, but that applies to, any day of the week. We just don't know what we don't know yet. But it seems like all signs are pointing toward us being okay. All right, so I want to talk now about just our local market, how all of this is impacting us here locally. So I'm going to give you guys some stats. I know some of you love this, some of you hate this. Sorry, not sorry. You guys need to know what's going on in the market. And this is for me, it's the exciting stuff. I follow trends. I follow numbers. I frankly think it's tough to find somebody that's more knowledgeable about what's happening within our market than me. Obviously, mainly because I've had this show for the past 8 years. I have to talk intelligently about it every week. And it's a hobby of mine. I like understanding what's happening in this market so that I can then relay that to you, the person that's thinking of buying, selling, investing in real estate, so that we've got reasonable expectations and we know what to do, where to go, when to stop, how much to pay, when is it okay to walk away, all that great stuff. So let's just get into some general market stats. In the Tri-County area, new listings, when I compare this to January of last year, new listings hitting the market in January was down 11%. But pending sales, properties that went under contract, were up 34%. So we put 1,867 properties on the market in January, last month, but we put 2,114 properties under contract. We closed on 1,421 properties, which is up 22% from January of last year. We saw days on market go. It's days on market has really been around in the mid 50s for frankly kind of years. Now it's down to 41, so that's down 28%. The median sales price was up 9.5%. The median sales price was $314,900. The average sales price, which look, it's 1 month worth of data. And it's the average. So I'm going to focus on the median, not the average. But just for kicks, the average sales price in the Charleston Tri-County area was $457,000, up 25% from January of last year. Again, focus on the median, not the average. The percentage of asking price received was 97.5%. That's up from 96% January of last year. And the housing affordability index went down to 89. In January of 2020, it was at 98, so that's down 9%. Obviously, interest rates are a saving grace here, but as prices go up relative to wages, homes become less and less affordable. But here is the story and this number. I always have Sam, my director of operations, here in the studio with me because he videos this, and we put this on our website, listingsincharleston.com, and on YouTube, and you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, all that great stuff. But I was just saying, this number is crazy. At the end of January, last month, a little over 2,000 properties available for sale. You know how many we had in January of 2020? Almost 5,500. 3,500 properties, boom, gone. Down 62% from January of last year. But if you take into account the rate at which we're putting things under contract and the resulting month's supply of inventory, we are now at literally 1 month supply of inventory. Frankly, we're probably less than that because at the end of January, we had a little over 2,000 properties available for sale. Now we're at like 1,850. It just keeps going down. It's incredible how quickly our market is absorbing inventory. So then let's look at some individual counties. Let's look at Charleston, Berkeley, and Dorchester County. In Charleston County, for single-family detached properties, new listings are down 16%. Closings are up 20%. Median sales price was up 18%. Days on market, 48 days. It's down 20%. The inventory is down 66%. If you look at Berkeley County, new listings are up 3%. Closings are up 30%. The median sales price is up 8%. And properties are selling in 27 days now, as opposed to 43 this time last year. So that's down 37%. And overall inventory is down 58%. In Berkeley County, at the end of January, there were 410 properties for sale. That time last year, there were almost 1,000. It's incredible. And then you look at Dorchester County. New listings are down almost 16%. Closings are up 10%. The median sales price was up 1.5%. They're selling in 25 days as opposed to 44 days in January of 2020, and inventory is down 68%. In all of Dorchester County at the end of January, there were 207 properties available for sale. Compared to 2020, there were 643. So that's down 68%. If you look at the condo market, I mean, let me just tell you this one, because those were all the stats for single-family detached housing. If you look at condos, let's just focus on one key thing, inventory of homes for sale. For condos and townhomes in Dorchester County, 17 for sale in January, last month. January 2020, 106, down 84%. Absolutely incredible. So when we come back, I'm going to talk about how you can capitalize on this. What are some things that you can be doing, whether you're a buyer or a seller, to make sure that you don't lose out on some opportunity. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me, you want to understand what your home is worth, what properties are going for in your area, prepare for the road ahead, which will likely result in multiple offers if you're a buyer. How do we win? We talked about that last show. But happy to go through it again with you guys. 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or check us out online. Listingsincharleston.com. We'll be right back.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty. Next on 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, folks, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. You know, again, if you guys have questions about the market, you're concerned, you need some help, maybe you just have a general knowledge question. Maybe you need a good contractor. Maybe you are thinking about renting your property out. Maybe you just have something that we don't typically cover on this show. I'm happy to be a resource for you. I'm happy to work with you. I'd love to earn your business in any way, shape, or form, even again, if it's just a resource. So feel free to call me, 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. You can text me at that number if you'd like. You can check us out online. You can contact me that way through listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. But I want to take these last few minutes and I want to just give you some real pointers here on what you should be thinking about and what you should be doing as you enter the housing market this year. I just went through some of these stats with you on what we're seeing in the form of inventory levels and the rate at which properties are going under contract. They're selling faster, we're selling more of them, and there is less for sale, which is pushing prices up. Does that mean that now is a bad time to buy? Does that mean that you as a buyer now wait for the market to stall and then eventually drop before you purchase something? I don't think prices are stabilizing or going down anytime soon, not until we start to add some serious inventory to the market. Either that or just something happens that we're not expecting. But you can't live your life based on the fear of the unknown. If you want to buy a home, with everything that we're seeing right now, it's going to be worth more than what you bought it for the day before. Prices are going up. So if you're a buyer in this market right now, let me just kind of shoot straight from the heart here, because I've been selling real estate for 16 years. A lot of buyers just frankly don't want to be bothered by real estate agents. They want to go through this process on their own. They don't need us to provide them with listings, which frankly is a bit of a mistake. But the bottom line is buyers have access to properties available for sale online, right? They don't need a real estate agent to gain access to that information. Now, if they want access to more relevant or more timely information, some of these websites have delays between the time that property is entered into the MLS, which is the main source of information for all of these websites that you look at. It all originates from the MLS. So if you want real-time data, you have to have an agent send you properties from the MLS because some of these other websites have delays. That's why when you look at some of these homes, let's use Zillow as a perfect example. A lot of people are very upset with Zillow right now. I don't have time to go into that, maybe next show, but by the time it makes its way to Zillow, it's already under contract. So if you're relying on that source for real-time data, I'm sorry, but you're going to be behind the eight ball. So I understand people wanting to go through the process of, I guess, the dream phase or the aspirational phase and the research phase, sure, do that on your own if you'd like. There isn't a real estate agent out there that is not willing to be helpful without the promise of a commission, by the way. We all want to earn your business. We all want to do the right thing and provide value. I say all, the majority. There are plenty of people out there that aren't willing to work with you unless you're ready, willing, and able and approved to buy a house. We believe in educating people and providing opportunity and providing value and earning business by doing so. But back to my original point here about agents, willing and able to offer help and value to folks, but folks really just don't want it because, hey, I don't want to be bothered by a real estate agent. I'm not ready to buy a house. So what happens? They get ready to buy a house. They're now ready, willing, and able, but because they don't really know what they don't know yet, or because they haven't been through this process in a few years and don't understand current market dynamics, they have delayed certain important steps in this process, one of which I talked about last show, which is getting approved for financing if you're going to get a mortgage. There are plenty of lenders and underwriters out there that will take you through the process and provide you with a piece of paper to show the seller, hey, I have the promise of a mortgage. I'm not just pre-qualified. I didn't just log on to Quicken Loans and put in some numbers that frankly aren't really that verifiable yet. I've actually been through the process. I have a mortgage waiting for me. I just have to find the right property. That is something that can seriously strengthen your negotiating power when it comes time to make an offer. But the mistake I see a lot of people making is kind of pushing agents to the side until they feel like they really need us. And then when they see something they like, by the time they get all their ducks in a row, they're either in a multiple offer situation, which causes you to pay top dollar for the property, or something goes under contract before they're ready to actually make the offer. And it's a really hard lesson. Frankly, it sucks having a buyer miss out on the property that they want to buy and move into and call home because they were resistant to some of the things that they should have been doing to prepare for that purchase. And I know that it's not the fun part of the process. It's, like I said last show, it's not sexy to talk to a lender, get pre-approved, rather than go and look at homes. That's the fun part. But if you can put extra time and effort and energy into the preparation of purchasing the property so that by the time you see one you like, you are as ready can be to present the strongest offer possible, it increases the likelihood not only of you getting that property, but getting a better deal. Urgency is a huge deal in this market. And if your agent or if somebody you've been talking to or a website that you're using isn't providing you with urgency and time-sensitive and reactionary methods to get you into that property quickly, you will lose out on some deals in a market like this. Now, as a seller, what can we be doing to make sure that we are getting you the most money possible since the market so heavily favors sellers? I think the biggest mistake that I see sellers making is they go with either a discount broker or somebody that's going to offer very limited service for a severely reduced commission, and they don't have the bandwidth to coach you through a multiple offer situation. Their marketing doesn't in and of itself create urgency. I mean, urgency is already there. Demand is already there in the market. But a really good agent that really understands marketing and understands buyers and their thought process and what makes them act, what causes them to make decisions, and what causes them to improve perceived value on real estate, those are the people, those are the agents that are winning big for their clients. And that's something I really stress, that if you're thinking about selling your house, interview agents, see what they're all about. What are they willing to offer? What are they doing above and beyond simply putting it in the MLS with the hope that buyers are going to fight over your house? There's more to it than that, I promise you. And if you'd like more information on that, if you want to know exactly what we do to market our properties for sale, give me a call or text me, 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. We're an open book. We'd love to earn your business. And there's a lot of it to be made out there, to be earned out there. A lot of great opportunities for both buyers and sellers. You just, I think, have to be connected with the right folks. So 843-400-8009. You guys have a great weekend, and thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. The Low Country legend lives on.
WTMA Charleston,
a Cumulus station.